My name is Malcolm Ong. I'm the co-founder of a company called Skillshare. We're a global learning community based in New York City. And today I want to talk a little bit about how we can reunite education with learning. But first, I want you to imagine sort of the learning path that you took to get to where you are today from childhood. How did you get to the exact position where you are today? And for some of you, it probably looks something a little bit like this. Perhaps you started with preschool, went on to elementary and primary school, then on to junior high school, eventually college, and maybe some graduate school. But when I asked myself how I got to where I am today, I actually imagined something a little bit different. I imagined something closer to this. Now, in elementary school, I remember I used to play a game called Magic the Gathering. It's a collectible card game where you would collect cards, make decks with it, and play and compete against other players. But what started as a passion and a hobby of mine actually turned into a business. I learned that if I purchased the cards in volume from wholesale suppliers, I could get them much cheaper and potentially sell them at a profit. I eventually started hosting tournaments around my city, and kids would come and buy tickets to the tournaments and compete against each other for rare prizes. So this was my first taste of entrepreneurship, right? Moving on to high school, while some of my friends were learning English and history, I actually had an interest in e-commerce, which was not taught in my school. So I ended up studying case studies about companies like Amazon.com, eBay, and whatnot. And in fact, I did my senior paper on how Amazon utilized dynamic pricing, so their method of dynamic pricing. Moving on to college, I was fortunate enough to be able to be accepted into a program and a university that had great computer science and business programs and curriculums. But rather than attending class, I actually spent a lot of my time learning how to start a business from scratch and how to code a website from scratch. So as a result, it actually started into my own company, e-commerce company called Empower Motorsports. Notice the difference between my formal education and what I actually learned. Right? The traditional way of education forces square pegs into round holes. It's a one-size-fits-all solution that pushes students down a very predetermined path. But what if learning was not so rigid? Everyone's journey is very, very personal and very, very different. Learning should be about following your passions for yourself, not necessarily about following a linear path specified by another. For many students growing up in the US, like myself, the goal of education was getting into college, not necessarily learning. We assume that college guarantees success. We sort of follow a college for all mantra. And students learn because they have to, not because they want to. So according to a study done by Harvard University, they said that only 55% of US students complete a 4-year degree within 6 years. And only 29% of US students complete a 2-year degree within 3 years. Okay, let's take a moment to think about that. So given a 6-year window, only 55% actually complete their 4-year degree. And given a 3-year window, only 29% complete a 2-year degree. Now, of course, there's many, many reasons why students drop out of school. But one of the major reasons that the study cited was that there was too many students that said that there was a huge gap between their curriculum and what their actual interests were, let alone what the opportunities were in the labor market. They said it was boring, irrelevant, and there was no path to achieving their dreams. For those that actually graduated school, 17 million Americans with college degrees are actually in jobs that don't require them at all, right? So the degrees that they paid both time and money so dearly for are actually getting them jobs that they could have acquired with just a high school diploma. And to make matters worse, more student loans today are being used to fund our education. But in the US, we owe more in our student loans than our credit cards. So what would our world look like if instead of memorizing facts and figures, we actually set out to learn for ourselves? What if instead of a college for all mantra, we followed more of a pathways for all framework? Okay. Enter Skillshare. Our mission is to reunite education with learning and to make it accessible to every single person on this planet. We're a global learning community where you can learn real-world skills from incredible teachers. Anyone can learn anything at any time at an affordable cost from anywhere in the world. So imagine a world where you can create your own learning path aligned with your curiosity. Because curiosity is the compass that leads us to our individual passions. Skillshare classes never expire, so you learn at your own pace. You learn by collaborating with the community, so we provide things like a Q&A discussion forum or study groups, both online and offline. Learn by making mistakes, failing fast. F should be the new A. Learn by doing, by making things. So imagine a world where students don't graduate. We're all lifelong learners, so cap and gowns don't see the light of day. Your proof of learning no longer needs to be a degree, certificate, or stamp of approval. All of Skillshare classes are project-based, so instead, you can showcase your project and your creations. For example, here's a screenshot of what a project gallery looks like for some of our classes and some of the projects that some of our students did for their classes. And finally, we're all teachers, so learn by teaching. Right? Here's an example of one of our earlier teachers, Avi. Avi teaches a programming class for us on Skillshare. He's a self-taught programmer since age 11. He's never received any teacher training whatsoever. In fact, he's actually a college dropout. But with the success of his programming classes, he quit his full-time job as CTO of his own company and opened up his own school in New York City, teaching people how to code with the goal of getting them a job within 90 days. And so here's Eric, one of his students. Eric convinced his parents to let him drop out of school and apply half of the tuition that he was paying towards Skillshare classes. He's never programmed before taking the Skillshare class that Avi taught. And after the 90-day course, he was able to get a full-time job programming in New York City. And so in these examples, right, with Avi and with Eric, for example, a college dropout is now a full-time teacher. So I want to sort of close and leave you with a couple things. First of all, a quote by Albert Einstein that said, "The only thing that interferes with my learning is my education." Okay, and the second thing, just sort of a short video to close and deliver this message.
Remember the first time you made something with your own hands? Or those times you decided you wanted to learn something? Those opportunities are all around you. It wasn't possible to learn with so many people from so many places before, because tools like this didn't exist before. But now they're right in front of you. Welcome to Skillshare, where you're invited to take classes on anything from anyone, anywhere. Learn from experts locally in your neighborhood or online from anywhere in the world. Go at your own pace. Complete hands-on projects. and connect with people both near and far. It's time to learn what you want, to pursue your passions, and become who you want to be. Learn differently than you've ever learned before at Skillshare.com.
Thank you.